Hey guys, Elise Mousy here, and welcome back to another Dragon Age Origins Codex video. Oh, we have a Companion's Quest. Cool, because we finally have one of those. Anyway, to the Codex. Still have quite a few things here. So the only new creature we have so far is Deep Stalker. So, fool trusts his eyes, a wise man fears every rock as a deep stalker. Dwarven saying. Possibly the strangest of all creatures found in the deep roads is the deep stalker. Tezpidam, as the dwarves call them, hunt in packs, generally by burrowing underground and then striking when their prey is in their midst. Stalkers come in several types. Spitters have venom glands and can spit secretions that slow or injure their prey. Jumpers hurl themselves at their targets, knocking them down and making the kill easier. The most common variety scares its prey, leaving the unfortunate victim helpless against the rest of the pack. Okay, let's see what we have for culture and history. I'm so glad this started with elf stuff so that I'm pretty sure I've said that before, but so that I know that when I click on this, I have already read that. Okay, because I feel like this has added stuff to some of these. So I'm gonna see if there are any addendums first. But we may not have had the cast list last time. So, the caste system in Orzammar includes many groups of privilege, the nobility and the warriors above all others, but to a lesser degree the merchants and the smiths and the miners. Tradition establishes a clear hierarchy, but as in any culture with an upper class, there is also a clear underclass. These unfortunates, the so-called casteless, are believed to be descendants of criminals and other undesirables. They have been looked down upon since Orzammar's foundation. They have taken up residence in a place called Dust Town, a crumbling ruin on the fringe of Orzammar's common areas. Orzammar society considers these casteless lower than even the servant caste. Indeed, the casteless are not allowed to become servants as it is too honorable a position. They are seen as little better than animals, their faces branded at birth to mark them as the bastard children of the kingdom. Their home district, little more than a slum, is a haven for crime, organized and otherwise. Orzammar's guards seemingly cannot be bothered to patrol its streets. The best that most casteless dwarves can hope for is a life at the whim of a local crime lord, ended abruptly by violence or an overabundance of toxic lichen ale. Even so, there is some hope for the casteless, a dangling rope that offers a way up into greater Orzammar society. Sorry, something thick in my throat there for a second. Since a dwarf's caste is determined by the parent of the same sex, the male child of a nobleman is still a part of the noble's house and caste. Strangely, it is acceptable for casteless women to train in the arts of courtly romance to woo nobles and warriors. They are known as noble hunters. Any male born from such a union is considered a joyous event considering the low rate of dwarven fertility. The mother and the entire family are then taken in by the father's house, although they retain their caste. The dwarves we know on the surface are also considered casteless once they leave Orzammar, although this is only relevant to those who return, if they are allowed to return at all. Dwarves who leave for the surface, the sun-touched as they're often called behind their backs, lose their connection to the stone and the favor of the ancestors, and thus are worthy of little more than pity, for upon dying they are said to be lost to the stone forever. Put that way, it seems a sad existence indeed. From Stone Halls of the Dwarves by Brother Genetivi, a Chantry scholar. Okay. Wait, hold on. So, are the mother and family not take... I bet they're not, because then the child is casteless. And they don't care about... Oh, sorry, I was thinking of a quest earlier, and it was... her husband. Like, the father of her child was casteless, I think. I don't know. Or something. I don't know, man. Of course. Here we go. The Deep Roads. There isn't a dwarf alive who remembers the Deep Roads as they once were. They were the network of tunnels that joined the Tigers together. To be honest, it isn't even right to give them such a simple term as tunnels. They are works of art with centuries of planning demonstrated in the geometry of their walls, with the statues of the paragons that watch over travelers, and with the flow of lava that keeps the deep roads lit and warm. The cloud gazers up on the surface talk of the Imperial Highway, built by magisters of old, a raised walkway that crossed thousands of miles, something that could only have been built by magic. Perhaps it is comparable to the deep roads, although we dwarves didn't need magic. I suppose it doesn't matter anymore. The Darkspawn rule the deep roads now. When Orzammar sealed off the entrances to the deep roads, abandoning everything that lay out there, we handed over the kingdom that was, to those black bastards forever. To think that there are Genlocks crawling over Bonamar now, tearing down our statues and defiling our greatest works. Corruption covers everything we've built out there. Every dwarf who goes out and comes back says it gets worse with each passing year, the foulness spreading a little further. And the cloud gazers think the Darkspawn are gone just because they aren't spilling out onto the surface? Huh. One day when Orzammar is gone for good, they'll find out differently. Those Darkspawn won't have anywhere else to go but up, and they'll do it. The surface folks will have themselves a blight that will never end. Transcript of a conversation with a member of the Dwarven Mining Caste, 890 blessed. Cut to Kalsharok. 1155 of the Tevinter Imperium will be known as a year of painful decisions, but we cannot waver. The threat we face is the greatest we have known. If we are overrun, all trace of the ancestors' glory will be undone. Orzammar must stand, and it must stand alone. Hormak, Kalsharok, Gundar, we have lost contact, and we must assume they are lost to the Horde. We must seal the weakest link in our defense, the deep roads that lead to our fallen brethren. I have ordered our finest demolitionists to place the charges. I ask that each of you think of those we have lost. They served as the warning that spurred us into action, and I know the stone will embrace them. They are the foundation of our survival, and they will not be forgotten. From a proclamation of High King Threestone. 200 years. Kalsharok lives, you stone-forsaken deep lords. There's no greater hatred than a brother at your throat. Graffiti, author unknown. Legion of the Dead. Yes, Stone's greeting, friend. You will fight ceaselessly in the Legion of the Dead. Motto of the Legion of the Dead. The Legion accepts all. So I was told by one of the legionnaires himself, a dwarf who waited quietly at the entrance to the deep roads for the rest of his unit to assemble. They gathered slowly, each equipped with heavy armor and fine weapons, each painted with grim tattoos applied at their funerals the night previous. For that is the nature of the Legion. They are all dead. Any dwarf may join the Legion, so long as he is willing to give up everything he has. The funeral rites are somber, a final goodbye is said to the family and loved ones, any material goods are dispersed to heirs, and last words are said, and then it is done. The new legionnaire marches out into the deep roads, never to return. The Legion fights against the Darkspawn to the last, striking one final blow against the monsters that have claimed so much of their homeland. Many join the Legion to clear the slate. Criminals join to avoid punishment. The dishonored join so that their houses and families need not suffer on their behalf. I think I've been reading too fast. I'm already out of breath. Sorry. The bankrupted join so their debts might be forgiven. A very few join for a last chance at glory, but the Legion takes them too. This group hopes to reach the fabled fortress of Bonamar, once the Legion's home, associated with the greatest of their paragons. Bonamar is a holy place, its loss the last great blow against the Dwarven kingdoms, and its recapture would be a glorious signal to all of Orzammar. But capture it or no, all of these warriors will die in the deep roads. It is a sobering thought, and I now know why the dwarves say that the Legion's charge is the battlefield's most frightening sight. They have nothing left to lose. From Stone Halls of the Dwarves by Brother Genetivi, Chantry Scholar. I don't have an addendum here. So this... And I can't remember how to say this again, damn it. Idakan? Let's go with that. The Assembly has never named a paragon with so little disagreement as there was for Paragon Idakan. No naysayers, only a single abstention. His worthiness was unquestionable, his favor with the ancestors clear. But family rumor says that the man himself was deeply troubled. Prone to fits of melancholy and self-doubt, never satisfied with his great achievement in protecting Orzammar, he died cursing that he had not managed to save the outlying taigs. Before he rose to Paragon, he was of little note. The memories tell us that he never entered a single proving, never sought to elevate his place among the warrior caste. I was just wondering what his caste was. Thank you. He spent most of his years prior to the First Blight fighting skirmishes in the deep roads, keeping them free from surface bandits, content to live quietly with his wife and daughters. When the Blight began, it caught Orzammar in the midst of a vicious inter-house war. Most of the warrior caste was caught up in the feuding, for as word of attacks poured in, each great house demanded that the army be sent to defend their taig, and no house would agree to sacrifice their own holdings for the safety of any others. The assembly was so utterly tied up with the infighting that the darkspawn spread unchecked to the gates of Orzammar herself. In the chaos, Idacon grudgingly took command of the armies. He enlisted the aid of the mining caste to collapse several overrun tunnels, called upon the smith caste to supply them with arms, and bypassed the assembly and the nobles entirely. With his leadership, Orzammar was saved from annihilation. For his insubordination, he was made Paragon. Yet he always considered it a defeat. From A History of Idacon, Paragon, King, Peacemaker, by scholar Gertek. Orzammar politics. Oh, I hate politics. Have I made that clear yet? As dangerous as it is to mistake a dwarf's caste, it is far more deadly to mistake his alliances among the noble houses of Orzammar. Everyone in the city is allied with someone, whether by blood or by word. The nobles do not engage directly in commerce themselves, as that is the domain of the merchant castes. They do serve as patrons. They invest in shops or in artisans' works, and in turn reap a share of the profits as well as a measure of the credit. Merchants and warriors alike benefit from the service of a prestigious patron. The relative power of each house is ever-changing. It is usually safe to assume that whichever noble house holds the throne is at the top of the heap, but below that, things grow into a tangled mess. Houses ally with one another by marriage. They earn rank and prestige when combatants loyal to them, or from their own bloodlines win provings. They earn it when artisans they patronize become sought after or well regarded, or when the merchants they invest in become successful. The degrees of power that these achievements confer is so murky, even to the dwarves, that it isn't unusual for nobles to challenge each another to provings over whose smith forges better belt buckles or whose servants have the best manners. Nor is it out of the ordinary to find two merchants arguing over whose noble patron has won the most acclaim, for the rank of the patron is the rank of the client. Nowhere is this more apparent than in the assembly, where the deshers, representatives of each noble house, meet. Although the king technically rules Orzammar, kings are elected by the assembly, and so each king must work constantly to maintain the support of the deshers. Kings who prove unpopular find their heirs deemed unacceptable to inherit the throne. Power then passes to another house. Dwarven faith. The chant of light is almost never heard in the halls of Orzammar. This is hardly surprising, for unlike the elves, who were literally abandoned by their gods, or the Tevinters, who worship dragons, the dwarves have no gods at all. Even the concept of worship is foreign in Orzammar. Instead, the dwarves seem to venerate the stone, a name they give to the earth itself. This seems practical for a people living underground, if perhaps a bit unimaginative. For guidance in spiritual matters, they turn to their ancestors. These ancestors, who are said to have returned to the stone, communicate their wishes to the living via brutal trials by combat called provings. The ancestors' collective wisdom is maintained by the Shaperate, which can apparently store records in Lyrium itself. Set above the ancestors, above even kings, are the paragons, dwarves who have achieved such greatness that they are elevated almost to godhood. These are the great figures holding up the hallway that leads from the surface, the first glimpse of Orzammar that outsiders see, from In the Pursuit of Knowledge, The Travels of a Chantry Scholar by Brother Genetivi. So that's everything for culture and history. Pardon? What new do we have for characters? Sten. Let's start at this one. We might be a little bit of a reread, but the stoic giant in the cage was surely the strangest thing the people of Lothering had ever seen until the Blight struck. He was sent with a small group of Qunari soldiers to investigate the Blight and report back. Outside Lothering, they were ambushed by Darkspawn. They fought off the attack, but only Sten survived. Farmers found him dying and took him in, but when he awoke, alone and unarmed, he panicked, killing the entire family. Realizing he had sacrificed his honor, Sten waited for the villagers to come and surrendered, expecting death. Books and songs. Legion of Steel. Paragon Caridin vanished in the 11th year of the reign of King Valdor. With the Paragon, the entire process for golem manufacture was lost. Expeditions were sent into the deep roads to track him, but the Darkspawn drove them all back. Finally, in the 2nd year of the reign of Queen Gaitha, 126 golems, the entire Legion of Steel, were sent to recover the Paragon. None returned. The Shaper of Golems refused to support any further attempts to find Caridin, and the Paragon was officially declared dead. The Shaper had never recovered from the loss of an entire legion of golems, and never again allowed an all-golem regiment into the deep roads. From the Stone Halls of the Dwarves by Brother Genetivi, Chantry Scholar. In Uthanera. I'm not reading all of that. Okay, I'll read the translation, but not the original Elven, because I'm gonna butcher it. Elder, your time has come, now I am filled with sorrow. Weary eyes need resting, heart has become grey and slow, in waking sleep is freedom. We sing, we rejoice, we tell the tales, we laugh and cry, we love one more day. In praise of the humble Nug! Nugs! I once served a human some Nug, and he proclaimed that it was like eating an unholy union of pork and hare. The idea disturbed him so much that he declined to finish his serving and made himself content with some stale bread. Of course, this only goes to show that surfacers, human or otherwise, have tragically unrefined palates. The Nug is surely the most delicious animal I have ever tasted. How dare you! Only a dead man would not salivate at the thought of a tender morsel of roast Nug melting in his mouth. The Paragon Varen, although his house has fallen, shall always be remembered for discovering the wonders of Nug flesh. Admittedly, it was discovered only out of desperation when he was separated from his legion and lost in the deep roads for a week, but we won't hold that against the good Paragon. While Nug pancakes and nuggets, my own children love these, are the Nug dishes one encounters most often. Nug can be prepared in other interesting and elegant ways. The late King Ansgar Idakan adored Nug seared on a hot metal plate and finished in the oven, and dressed in fine cream sauce flavoring with deep mushrooms. You must be careful when using the mushrooms from the deep roads, because they often grow close to darkspawn bodies. They said that this is what gives them their unique flavor and intoxicating scent, but it also means that consuming too many of them may result in curious afflictions of the mind. From In Praise of the Humble Nug by Bergan Tolban, honored chef to the House Icon. How dare you? Traditional Dwarven folk songs. Nug sits in the mud, Nug wiggles his ears, you catch the Nug, he slips away, Nug gets to live another day. Nug sits in the mud, Nug wiggles his toes, you hook the Nug, he slips away, now the Nug runs off to play. Nug sits in the mud, Nug wiggles his nose, you tickle the Nug, he laughs away, now the Nug sits on my plate. No! I don't like it. Sophia Dryden's journal. How did we not... When must we have gotten this that we didn't actually get to read it? 21 Alluviesta. It is done. The nobles have thrown their lot in with Arland. Arland, the snot-nosed man-child. Arland, who did not walk till he was in his 5th year. Arland, who had to be pried off his nursemaid's breast not 2 years ago. Or so it is whispered. The Terrans and the Arls believe him to be a simpleton, and easily led, but I have seen something in the boy's eye, and it terrifies me. 10 Molioris. I watched the summer day processions from a room high in Fort Dracon. The regent has me for treason when My only guilt is being true to my country and my heart. My guard's tongue was easily loosened with a gift of a ruby ring, and I am told that the bands are fighting against my sentence. I shall pray, but not hope that it will be anything but the gallows for me. To Ferventus. The drought was like a bitter fire, but I survived. No, draft. Drought? Draft. I think. I don't know. I think drought is with an O. So I think that's draft. I'm gonna call it draft. The draft was like bitter fire, but I survived. Weep for me, for I survived. Would that they had made a clean end for me. I should have died a lady, the greatest of the Dryadens, not lived to become this nothing, this monstrous nothing. 19 Metronalis. Enough. I shall waste no more time with wretched womanish lamentation. Death would have been easy, but fate saw fit to spare me, and I will seize upon this chance. The Grey Wardens are an army, and the old commander is weak, a wisp of a man. I will inspire the Wardens, and Arlen will rue the day he spared my life. Select entries from the journals of Warden Commander Sophia Dryden. Okay. So... Okay, a letter from King Endrin. My Lord Harrowmont, my guilt weighs heavily on me, and I know now that I was a fool. Only a fool would cut out his own heart and burn it for the sake of appearances. I allowed the assembly to send my child to exile and death because I feared an inquiry into Trian's murder would taint our house with scandal. You have been my rock and my shield these long months, and for that I thank you. But I must ask for one thing more. I wish to discover if my child survived. Even the smallest trace will set my mind at ease. Send your men, your scouts, anyone who will go. Balin thinks I am mad. He says that if word spreads of my wish, our house will be undone. He does not know that Idakan is already lost. I destroyed us when I sacrificed what was most precious. Please, Pyrrhal, help me. I come to you not as king, or as a king, but as a father. Interesting. I should jump to the quest related, because I might not have time for everything else. Key to the city. Oh, Jesus. This one's long. Huh. Because this one is so long, I may have to cut it after this one. The key to the city. While your concerns have merit, the Assembly has made itself clear. Space within the Tig is at a premium, but the intended function of the hall merits the additional resources committed. The statues of the Paragons must be the core of the Hall of Heroes. There is no other placement that so benefits dwarven interests. It is the first glimpse that surface ambassadors have of Orzammar, an introduction not just to our living ancestors, but also to the stone from which we are born. They must see it shaped before they can understand the complexity of its raw form. The hall must also serve a second purpose, as a last sight for departing brethren. Those who choose to leave must do so with the heavy gaze of their ancestors at their backs. It is a reminder of duty and of consequence. We will promote all manner of trade, but also reinforce that those who leave for too long will return as strangers to the stone. From End Report of the Assembly Zoning Commission. Pursuant to Order 5-1A, no dwarf of indeterminate caste may conduct business in the Commons. This was subsequently clarified by the Assembly to mean that the owning and operating of stalls or kiosks is limited to those of identified and approved house names with traceable ancestor lineage of at least 3 generations. Exceptions include individual purchases of goods or services from established stalls or kiosks, provided the funds are presented at the opening of the transaction at the discretion of the stall or kiosk owner. I'm sure you understand the need to maintain strict quality control over all goods and services that flow through Orzammar, especially when we are making a concerted effort to encourage outside investment. The standards of Dusttown and that of the common brand are simply not sufficient. Your trade permit is hereby denied. From a judgment of the Assembly Trade Council regarding Midal's reclaimed wares. Was he the guy that was on the surface? That had used stuff? That sounds familiar. It is agreed that no rules of procedure were explicitly broken, but a 5-day filibuster is nonetheless worthy of censure. Division of House Gorismote property was deliberated for a full session, and forfeiture of the southern estate deemed a necessity, since the birth of young Kide necessitates his elevation to noble status, and it is unthinkable for a noble's family to live in the slums. It is the responsibility of the father to accommodate the placement of his family. It is not possible to simply generate new space in the Diamond Quarter without compromising the Tige's structural integrity. Lord Dace's comments that if Lord Gorismote didn't want a new heir, he shouldn't have slummed for a concubine, was indeed inappropriate, but the proper procedure for resolution through proving was followed. Both parties agreed to accept his retraction, and that matter is considered separate and closed. The decision at the Assembly regarding the placement of the Duncote clans stands. From a writ of the Assembly Zoning Council regarding the placement of the Duncote clan. Your efforts have been exemplary, but these self-proclaimed cartels must defer to the Assembly and restore order. Exclusion from caste and society is no excuse. Perhaps suggest that it would be a simple matter to march on the quarter, or simpler still, to withdraw infrastructure support. A tunnel breach would be most unfortunate, but current policy direction prohibits any deals that would legitimize cartel operations. Downward pressure on certain elements of our society has proven useful in shoring up the economy with an excess of affordable labor. It also encourages enlistment into the Legion of the Dead, the one accepted path to partial redemption and a vital force on our weakening front lines. This model suffers when criminals create their own hierarchies with alternative methods of social advancement. Every stone has a face that can't be carved, a side that must be earthward. We need their so-called dust town, but it would be inadvisable to include that in your negotiations. We have the utmost faith in you, Cap. The rest is obscured by bloodstains. From a confidential Assembly directive regarding proliferation of cartels. And I know I probably have a couple more minutes, so I probably have 1 or 2 more entries in me, but I started off a little too fast. So I need to stop here. Don't know necessarily when the next Codex video will be, because I don't think we have enough entries left for another video yet. But we'll see. But for now, if you liked what you saw, leave a like, leave a comment. Subscribe if you're not subscribed. Maybe tap that notification bell to get notified every time I upload. See you on the flip side. Elisa out.